we finally when we put out T Love, the last single that we put out, it is now the number one song. We fucked up Kiwi. We knocked that one down, and I couldn't be more happy.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Dude, no, thank you so much for having us.
Cool. So I'm Adam, and the podcast is about you guys in your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new music you have coming out.
Dope.
Cool. So first off, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in Brooklyn. My dad died when I was 3. We moved to 14th Street after that, stayed in 14th Street, moved down to like the Tribeca area, Lower Manhattan. My parents, then my mom got remarried, and then they thought it would be a great idea to move out to Portland, Oregon, and live out the rest of our lives there. Ended up only spending 3 years in Oregon before I was offered the opportunity to come back. I accepted it in about 2 seconds. Moved back to the city for 8th grade. Met our drummer Attila at the middle school. Went to 9th grade, met the rest of the band all in 9th grade. We became like best friends. Yeah, I mean, really since then we've just been together hanging out in Manhattan.
Wow. Okay. First off, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. That's awful. And secondly, so you were in Brooklyn, and honestly, I'm not familiar with New York at all. So you said that you moved to what, 14th Street? Is that fairly close by, or like is that a totally different neighborhood?
Brooklyn, I lived in around like Park Slope area, and then 14th Street is like it's like little bit lower than, it's like Lower Manhattan, but not quite Lower Manhattan. It's above like Canal Street. It's like a different borough. Got it. And then you lived there until you moved to Portland. How old are you when you made the move to Portland? I was in Portland from 4th grade to 6th grade. So okay. Yeah. So a handful of years there. Right on. And then you made it back to New York. We'll get to that. But how did you get into music? Were you playing music before you moved out to Portland? So basically, like my birth dad was a musician, and he died when I was 3. And sort of like the only thing I had to like, he didn't like leave me a note. He didn't leave me like anything to really like know him by. But he was a musician, so he did leave behind a bunch of like songs, and that's sort of like the only things I really had to like go off of, like trying to figure out like who he was. So so he had a bunch of recorded music that you had access to. Wow. So yeah, ever since I like could listen to music, I would be listening to that and really trying to read into it, and I loved it. And it basically like he was almost like in a way like a bit of a comic. So he definitely like had humor in the songs, and like they meant something a little bit more than just like a song, which was something I always really kind of appreciated about it. But it was some like hardcore like New York City like pub rock type deal that I think I basically like kind of grew up on. He wrote I don't know if you can see it. I don't know where it is in my room, but right here. I got this gold record for he wrote for the Blue Oyster Cult. Oh, no way. Yeah, so on Fire of Unknown Origin, he has like a couple songs on there. So I've had that, and that was like always really cool. I always got to look at so that. Cool. So definitely like, but he himself never really got any real recognition, any real like progress in the music industry. He ended up becoming like a high school teacher. That's how he like met my mom. Okay, but he still was a songwriter, obviously, and wrote big songs for those records. Yeah, he wrote until he died, basically. And I always thought it was such bullshit because like my brother, I have an older brother, he got a song. And when I was younger, my mom used to always tell me that it was also about me.
except the only thing is in the song, he like shouts out my brother by name. He goes, Jacob. I'm just like, damn, like now I just know, you know, I just thought about it.
Oh man.
Definitely tough.
Does your brother play music?
No. He was a professional ballet dancer though.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So he went still in the arts, but didn't a different route than you went.
Definitely more of a physical route.
Okay. So obviously growing up, knowing that your dad was a musician and a great songwriter, that drew you to that. And then how quickly did you want to kind of follow in his footsteps?
I mean, I joined my first, like, I've always wanted to, like, I remember, you know, I was definitely the kid that was always pushing like a family karaoke night.
Okay.
But my like earliest actual memory, I started taking guitar lessons when I was in 3rd grade. And then when we moved to Portland, I joined like the School of Rock in Portland.
Oh, cool.
And that like sort of allowed me to live out some of those dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But it really wasn't until, you know, I met the guys and we formed the band that it felt like, it really felt like I was doing what I wanted to be doing, if that makes any sense.
No, totally. But at least you had, you know, the experience as far as like learning guitar lessons and then going and playing. From what I hear about School of Rock, I mean, you're put in pretty much a band, right? And you're doing covers and you're playing shows. Yeah. I mean, that's cool.
I was doing like Soundgarden covers when I was in like 5th grade.
I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, a little ass kid just like trying to sing like Chris Cornell. It really did not work so well, but
still, I mean, wow. So you were the singer, always a singer?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you ended up getting the opportunity to move back to New York. You said around 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
What allowed that? I don't know if you even care to tell, but
I think, you know, it was kind of like my parents, like, they always told me, you know, they read like a New York Times article about how Portland was like the next like big thing, like the next big city to like go and like relax and retire in, basically. And that's how they like made the decision. And we get out there and we spend like 3-4 years and they kind of just like look at each other and they're like, yeah, like we're so bored, like this is horrible, like we cannot live like that. My grandma too was dying and she was in the city, so it was hard for my dad. So he just basically like they came down to my room one day and they were like, hey, like, I know like you're just kind of like finally getting settled in here, but like if you had the opportunity, like would you want to move back?
Mm-hmm.
I literally like, I look down, I look up, and I'm like, as soon as possible. Like,
you're like, should I start packing now? Or
yeah, like literally, like it was like something like 3 months later, like we were back in the city.
Oh, okay. So your whole family ended up moving back?
Yeah. So basically, my brother, in 8th grade moved out. He's 2-3 years older than me, and he ended up going to boarding school for ballet in 8th grade. So he left. It was only me, my mom, and my new dad. And so yeah, it wasn't that hard of a decision to make.
Sure.
Those kids, yeah. It's kind of, I don't know, like, did you grow up in like where'd you grow up?
San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the neighborhood, like, did all those kids like grow up together too?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everyone kind of grew up together, and I would imagine it being very hard to just move into a neighborhood and being like, okay, hey, you know, and you're like the end of elementary school type deal.
Yeah,
and then
like kids were like meanest at that time too.
Oh,
you know?
sure.
Like,
yeah, middle school is the worst.
Yeah, it's like anyone that like moves in is just kind of like, you know.
I feel bad because I did that. I just recently did that to my older son. We moved from San Diego to Nashville, and it was like he was in 8th or 7th grade, and we're like, sorry. But like it was a COVID, so I guess there was that little barrier that nobody was really going to school. But still,
it's like,
I mean, I felt bad.
You don't got to have, you know, there's no one anyways. So.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, so you ended up moving back to New York, and you said 9th grade is when, or you met one of the members
in 8th
grade.
like the summer going into 8th grade.
Okay. And then you met one of the guys in the band, and then met the rest of the band once you made it.
Yeah,
into
he
high
just
school?
like ended up like the drummer Attila, like he just like ended up like just like being at my middle school, and we just like we were friends. We actually weren't like best friends in 8th grade. Like he had his own like group of people, and like I like sort of found like my own group of people. But then like when we went into 9th grade to the same high school, we stayed together a little bit more. We like finally got to like talking a bit more. He joined like the band. The school had like a band program. He joined like the band program 9th grade, and that's how he met our guitarist Jasper and our other bass player that's no longer with us, Adrian. And it wouldn't be, and we have another guitarist, his name is Ben Acker, but he didn't join until like 12th grade basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when do you guys kind of start jamming together, or when do you start jamming with the drummer? Was that even in 8th grade or not until 9th?
No, that so I didn't start jamming. We didn't start jamming until like end of 9th grade. That was like the first time that we like, we went over to Attila, the drummer's house, and like, we were discovering weed for the first time.
Okay.
He had like a drum kit there because he like played drums and some guitar amps, and Jasper, our lead guitarist, his father is also a musician, and he's just like he's like a fucking virtuoso. So like
okay.
we started doing like Hotel California. We literally have, it's so crazy. Like we have a video of like the first time we ever played music together, which is like insane. And it's cool. Us covering like just like an impromptu like Hotel California cover. And we look like such little babies in it, and it's so adorable. But
that's such a rad thing to have.
I know. For the documentary, for the documentary.
Exactly. For the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's cool. So then you continue playing cover songs, and when do you start writing originals?
So basically like we hung out that summer a lot. We chilled. We wrote a lot of we played a lot of cover songs, and then the next year is when I joined the band program. And I ended up getting placed in a band with, it was all of us plus these 2 other girls. But like us being the dudes that we are, the girls quickly left. They did not they did not like the fart jokes and the immaturity of it all.
Yeah. Were you singing also for when you joined the band, or the band program at school? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Bit of a no, I'm not gonna expose it. Never
mind. Okay. That's funny. So the band starts, you guys start doing covers, and then when does the band like officially start of Quarters of Change? Like when do you guys go, okay, this is like a thing, let's continue, we want to do this?
Yeah, so I think the start of 11th grade, or like midway through 10th grade, the music department at our school started this elective that was called like basically it was like a learn how to record elective, and me, Attila, and Jasper all took it, and that was when we sort of started really realizing that, hey, like it's possible to record music, and the school had mics, and like it was all kind of like laid out in front of us like for us to use. No one was really taking advantage of it. So as we like learned more and more, it didn't make sense for, like, at least we felt like it didn't make sense for us to record covers. Like,
sure,
I'm not saying it's wrong to record covers, but for us it was like, if we were going to record something, like let's record some original music. Like we're great players, we've played all these songs, we know how to do that. Like let's move on to the next step, kind of. And that's when we wrote, probably like end of 10th grade, is when we wrote our first song, which is called Hot Blazing Sun. And we ended up recording it as part of like the final for that elective. And it went really great. We still didn't have like a band name, but we had the piece recorded. We started writing other songs, and then come 11th grade, we start brainstorming names for the band, get basically around the block, you know, after a couple horrible names. We had the pasta sauce prostitutes, the Putinesca, Lime for a second. And it wasn't really until Quarters of Change that we were like, yes, okay, now we can like start, like the name really had to be the basis for everything to like move off of. Set up like the Instagram that day, like did all like the things to finally like just cement it, move forward with releasing Hot Blazing Sun as the single. We then like would sneak into the school after hours, go down to the like recording rooms and like set up, and we basically recorded like a eight song album, all like by ourselves in the basement. And that was like, I remember being like, that was probably like the most fun that like I've ever had in school. Because it was like, you know, everyone it would be like people would like skip, like different people would skip classes to go do like overdubs, and like sometimes I just leave class, and I remember being like, damn, like I'm really leaving class right now to go down and like record our like debut album. Like that's so awesome.
That's rad.
Yeah, there was definitely, they closed the bathrooms down at a certain point, so there was definitely some like pee in bottles, some very like very like, but all stuff that we felt was very quintessential to the rock and roll experience.
For sure. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So then you record this record or this album, and then do you start just trying to play around New York? Is that the next?
Yeah. So then we get these songs sort of ready. We start booking shows. First show, you know, iconic venue, place where all people I felt like should start was Bitter End, in New York City. We play our first show there. It, like the thing about the Bitter End to me is, you know, I love it. Historical venue, great place, but there's seating. It's like there's a stage and there's just seats.
Okay. I've never been there. That's interesting. There's seats there.
Yeah. So just like, I don't know, like for rock and roll, I'm just kind of like, you know, we're up there doing like a gent section, and like people are just like politely, it's like a gent, like, I don't know. It's like a Bob Dylan, like, you know, single acoustic guitar vibe.
Yeah, like singer-songwriter type thing.
So to be like rocking out that hard just felt like a little awkward. So we ended up graduating from the Bitter End to Rockwood, which is like a slightly larger venue that has like no seating, and that was like sort of like our second home for a while.
Okay.
And then, you know, 12th grade rolls around. We finally released the project. Things are going like pretty well. We're like tighter than ever at all the Battle of the Band shows and stuff too. Like we keep getting like wilder and wilder. Like we performed that year with like, I remember it was we wore just robes and with nothing under it, and like we hopped on the stage and we started doing like, I think we opened with Breed by Nirvana.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was just such a vibe. We covered in that time, it was mostly Red Hot Chili Peppers covers. You know, we really love the Chili Peppers, but a lot of like Rage Against the Machine, you know, just like some hard shit. That's right. That's really where like our hearts were. And after that, we made a bit of money off of the shows to the point where we were like, all right, like we started getting a lot better at songwriting, and we were like, okay, so we have some money. That's when we wrote Kiwi basically during that time period.
Okay.
If you're familiar, but
no, yeah.
We took it to, we found like one studio, and we were like, all right, we're going to book like 1 8-hour session. Not enough time at all. Learned that very quickly, but that was like all the money we had. We ended up recording that Cycle and Trips EP, which is now the only EP that really remains from that time on streaming platforms. We kept the original album on like Bandcamp and stuff, but we just kind of felt that sonically, like it wasn't up to like the par of like what we wanted people just to be streaming. We weren't like, it's not about being like ashamed of like, you know, like the first songs we really wrote. Like I think they're fucking bangers. Like I love those songs, and like it's just really like we didn't know what we were doing when we were recording it. Like the room wasn't treated, like it just kind of hurts your ears a bit, you know. And I didn't want that to like taint anything,
right?
And I felt like we weren't turning our back on like our high school era, because we still have pieces from the high school era up. Yeah, so we get those 3 songs recorded, and end up moving. We end up only really getting like 2 of them. We set up like a DIY recording studio in Attila's basement, and yeah, I mean that's where we left for college after that. And the only time that we really had was like little breaks in between. We'd come back, we'd like rush a song, and it kind of would be like, for a little bit at least that freshman year when everyone was so busy, like Jasper and Attila both went to like music schools, so like we were under the assumption that maybe they would join a band there and that would become their main priority. But it would be like, oh, we just have to record one more song. Like we have this one song, and like that song's the song. So like as long as we just like record that one, then like we're good, and we can move on almost. And it kept getting like that until it just like kept going like that. And it'd always be one more song, and it'd always be one more song, and we'd come and we'd do it in like 2 weeks, and we wouldn't have a lot of time, but we'd bang it out, and it'd be fucking amazing, and we'd feel that feeling again, and it would just be like really reinvigorating. And basically it continued like that until COVID summer. And then COVID summer hit, and at that point, like I hated school. At that point too, like we had released the Hey EP, which was like our first body of work post high school. And even though it was the first body of work since high school, like Kiwi was on that, and so like it was like a bit of a mix. And Mean Queen was on that, which is also from high school. So I guess it really was like the final bunch of songs that we had written in high school.
Like in high school, got it.
And it got like, it was the first time that we like really we released something that was received like just so well. People were like really kind of amazed by it, and it felt like we had gotten that like little bit of reward that we had been searching for years, just like from our peers and from others that like we had never really gotten before. It's interesting to note maybe too that like Chords of Change was never accepted by a scene in New York. Every time we'd play and like people would say like, oh, I'm gonna bring like an industry person and they're gonna like tell you like how you guys are, the note would always be the same. It'd always be like you have like too many like different sounds, and like you need to like be like fit into like one sound.
They wanted you to be like in one box, it sounds
like.
Got it.
And like this is a similar way with like like we couldn't fit into the shoegaze scene even though we were rock, because we weren't playing strictly shoegaze. And like I don't know, like we weren't like bullied at all, and we weren't like cast aside as like, oh, like those are just like nerd musicians. Like that wasn't us. But like at the same time, like it was sort of I think people were like, we're gonna wait and see what happens with these people before we like really do anything like for them or like pay attention to them, type deal, which was always something that like kind of it like pushed us to be more like self-reliant. Like we had to, every show that we had to throw, like we had to throw by ourselves. Like there was no other bands to really call upon at that time too. There wasn't a lot of bands in the city really like operating, like especially at like a high school level.
Right.
And do you know the band Hello Mary? I'll plug them.
I don't.
Their drummer Stella Brandstool is like one of my best friends. Dated our drummer Attila. Like she runs a sick ass band. And they play like shoegazy stuff. But she like, we kind of like all started at the like same time as being like we weren't like there were definitely like other bands before us, but like for especially like our grade, like it was really just like 3 bands, I would say. And then now, I look at the scene now or whatever, and I don't know, I'm pretty proud of New York. Like there's like, at least that I know of, there's like at least like 10, 11, 12 different like high school bands like operating, going around doing like the same things that like we were doing, and it's super dope to see. And
yeah, that is
awesome.
that's cool to see the scenes continuing to grow.
Yeah.
Instead of like, the other way around, right? Like no one's forming bands anymore and it's just kind of going away. But yeah, that's awesome. So with Kiwi though, like, did you see success on that song just like on streaming platforms, or like was it?
So, I mean, like, the thing with Kiwi was, so we released Kiwi, and I was sort of like obsessed with like the stats at the time, and it was the first song that I noticed like every single day there was getting like between like 300 and like 500 streams, which is like, granted, like that's like nothing. Like it's not like,
but
it's
still,
like
that's
now.
huge,
but like
right?
a band that like has like, I think before we released it, we had like 800 monthly listeners or something. So like that every single day, I was like, damn. And we grew to like 3,000, 5,000. And then it really was just like, like 9 months later, I wake up one morning, I go and I like look at the Spotify for artists, and it just says like 120 people listening right now. And I'm just like, wow. What? And that day, like Kiwi got 12,000 streams. And then basically since then, it's been going crazy. And it had always been, and I'm so happy we're doing this podcast right now, because I can finally say it became like the bane of our existence. Cause it was like really like, that's the one song we like wrote in high school is like the biggest song. And it's like, okay, like, can we please top that? Like, please. And we finally, when we put out T-Love, the last single that we put out, it is now the number one song. We fucked up Kiwi. We knocked that motherfucker down, and I couldn't be more happy.
That's incredible. I was gonna say, not only that though, like you had, aside from that's awesome that song did really well and it was a thing from your high school, but like you have a song on like a Netflix docuseries. You got signed to a record label. You had like, I want to hear about this like TikTok moment with Jaded too.
Yeah.
Other big things obviously have happened, but that is rad to say that like, your most current single is the one that's crushing, right?
Yeah.
not to like push that to the side, but that's huge.
Yeah. Well, then it becomes like a whole other pressure where it's like, all right, now top that. Like that one. It's like, oh shit. Like you end up just like shooting yourself in the foot. But so we got the opportunity to submit like the label, like we got signed basically like around this time last year,
based off of Kiwi, or like what drew their attention?
So during that like COVID writing period, our drummer Attila, like he dropped out freshman year of college. We're like all right now, we're technically seniors in college, except we're all now dropped out. He started like a studio of his own at this space at Thompson Street in Brooklyn. And it's where you would go. Like we basically formed a pod during COVID. It was just us. We'd meet every single day. We'd go to the studio. We'd write. And we got to the point where we were like, okay, I'm a massive Strokes fan. Talking about like New York City alternative rock.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. Those legends. Yeah.
And I had followed like their story really closely to the point where I was like, okay, so like the Strokes, what they did is they released this 3-song EP. It basically went crazy around the world, and they ended up getting signed off of it, and then they made their first album off of it. So I was like, okay, so we need to take like our 3 strongest songs, and we're going to package it into an EP, and we're going to put it out, and then after that we're going to get signed, and then after we get signed we're going to go and we're going to drop this first project, and it's going to be massively successful. Okay. So that ended up being the Innocent EP. And there was a lot of, definitely like when it was finally like ready and we were about to roll it out, there was a couple drunk conversations walking home, like hugging each other, being like, yeah, like it sounds so good. Like it's going to happen. We put out the first 2 songs from it. which was, the first one was Down That Road, the second one was Dancing, and the third one was just like the innocent whole thing. And it ended up getting a lot of like editorial support from Spotify, which is how all these labels basically find new acts.
Sure.
So we almost immediately started getting hit up by like Mason Kinsune hit us up to do like a single deal, Warner or 300.
Wow. Yeah.
And we ended up talking to a bunch of different people, and it really, at the end of the day, we formed this relationship with this A&R guy named Jonah Rappaport at 300. And he was just like, he was like an amazing guy. He clearly really believed in us. And, you know, he was just like saying like, you know, like, if you guys have the vision, like we can bring you there. And luckily we had a Ben Acker's dad is a music lawyer, which was like the best asset in the world.
I was gonna say, yeah, wow,
so
what a
helped, yeah, so he helped like sort of put that deal together. We ended up signing with them, and we had this whole body of work ready to go, like this whole album that we were going to release independently. But like after we got signed, we sort of looked at each other and we were like, yeah, they opened up like a recording budget to us. We can finally go into like real studios. And we were like, all right, like, you know, like this matters like a lot now. Like we need to like, you only really get like one shot at it.
Right.
You know, that's what I was constantly being told. So we were like, all right, let's rewrite this whole thing. So we spent like the year, we spent the rest of that summer writing the album that we're finally getting to put out now. We only ended up keeping 2 songs from the original album. And it feels so good, man, because it's like finally we get to be putting out this work that we've been waiting years to put out. Our relationship with the label grew a lot. They gave us that opportunity. They were like, hey, like, we know the studio that's producing this docuseries for this Netflix docuseries for Bubba Wallace. I like knew who Bubba Wallace was just from like following the news, and I thought it was a really awesome opportunity. I also thought it was a really cool, like, unique opportunity to sort of challenge my own songwriting, because it's like, oftentimes like I'm not given any parameters. It's just like, all right, like, how do you feel? Like, all right, like look into yourself and just like start writing about sort of like what you want to write about. But this was like, they gave us like a list of other songs they were considering, and a lot of it was like, you know, I saw a bunch of like Jack Harlow, a lot of like, you know, modern day like rap and hip hop. So I was like, all right, shit. So they definitely, at first we thought they wanted like a NASCAR ripping, like old school, like Leonard Skinner type beat.
Sure.
But then I saw the track list and I was like, oh no, that's clearly
not what they're going for. Not really a Jack Harlow's lane.
Yeah. So I ended up being like, all right, like, I think it would be a really awesome idea to try and write like a theme song for Bubba Wallace, like not for the docuseries, but like for this guy in specific.
For him, right?
And that's like, we ended up calling the song Mr. Wallace. We sent it into the music supervisors. They ended up loving it. We ended up getting the spot for like the end credit scene on all the episodes.
That's huge.
Yeah, and it was a really awesome moment. I remember going to like the premiere of it, and everyone was so nice. We didn't, you know, I still haven't met Bubba. Maybe one day, but he's
right.
Like, he's like,
you'd be like, I wrote a song for you, man.
I know, dude, like, pay attention to me. No, but he's a really dope guy. He's like a musician himself. He plays drums. It would be dope to like jam with him. But
record the song. I mean, I don't know, offense to your drummer, but have him on the song, you know?
Yeah. I think Attila would be okay with that.
That'd be crazy.
You know, the one, I don't know if like this is like interesting at all, but you know, the one thing that we were always, even before anything, we always had agreed on was equal partnership in all the songs, no matter your role in the song. Like, I write all the lyrics, and sometimes I help write some of the like instrumental parts too. And sometimes Jasper will write like a bass part, a guitar part. But no matter what, like everyone gets an equal percent of the song. I think it came out of like, I think it probably came out of, you remember when that Queen movie came out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody, you're right.
Yeah, and they just talk about, you just see how it like tears apart the band like from the inside out. Sure. And then it was like, we talked to other people and they were like, yeah, that's like the smartest thing you guys could do. And it feels right too, because it's like, these are my best friends, these are like my family, and it's like, we either all succeed or like none of us succeed. So it feels like the best way to like go about it is just share on everything.
I think that's smart too. Yeah. Instead of everyone has their own equal voice in it, instead of you showing and be like, all right, here's the song, here's the lyrics, and this is how it's going to be played. You play this, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And that's a lot of bands. That's how it really works.
I think that ended up being like a really it's like a really strong thing, I think, because everyone ends up pushing back on everything, and like everyone's own influences get thrown in the song, and it just makes it a lot more interesting, I think, at the end of the day, because it's like a little bit of here, a little bit of there, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of spice.
For sure. I completely agree. Yeah, the collaboration is huge on art.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, what were we talking
about?
No,
I was going to ask you about, that's great. I was curious about the Mr. Wallace thing and the docuseries. You went over, the whole 300 thing. I'm curious now about the TikTok moment you had with Jaded.
Oh, yeah. So we've had a couple viral like TikTok moments where I was like, oh, this is so cool. TikTok ended up becoming basically like, the label would come to us and they're like, all right, like, so like, how are you guys planning on like promoting your stuff? Like, how are you planning on growing your fan base? And we'd literally be like TikTok. And so we had a couple viral moments, but the hardest thing I think on TikTok to do is make the pivot from just making like video content to making video content specific to your song.
Sure.
Because it's a lot easier for people on TikTok to be like, oh, I know, like they're playing like a cover, like, oh, they're doing the solo from like that song, like that's so cool, like, but to
it's familiar,
like, an original piece of music and have them be like, oh, this is awesome, was something that was really, really hard to do. The first moment that ever happened was actually with T-Love, we dropped a harmony video of us doing like the chorus harmonies. And this was like months before the song was even like ready to come out. And Ben Acker was wearing this Funkadelic t-shirt that has these titties on it. And the next morning we wake up and I'm like, oh, it's only at like 5,000 views. Like that's okay. But like, I don't think it'll be anything special. The day goes on. I check my phone again. It's at like 20,000 views. And I'm like, wow. Oh, okay, like it's moving. And then I check my phone like 2 minutes later, it's like at 25,000 views. And then I'm like, oh shit. So it's moving. Like I like every time
quickly,
I refresh it, it's like going up thousands and thousands. It gets to 40,000 views and I go to refresh it. And then it goes content censored or content like taken down. And I'm like, no. No, and it was because of the titties. You cannot
the shirt.
Titties.
Bummer.
And that was like heart-wrenching because it felt like I was given the viral moment and it was just
they're like yoink. Yeah.
But basically it really wouldn't be until we released Jaded that we had another viral moment with like our music again. And that was really cool. I just kind of like, I didn't copy because I'm sure she wasn't the first person to do it, but Pink Pantheress, like I know that she had a lot of success off of TikTok. And I went and I checked out some of her videos and like basically all it was just like, she'll just like be like posted up with her phone playing like the sound and it'll just be like waiting for people to notice. That.
Yeah.
So I was just like, all right, like, and I just made like the title like waiting for this to like reach some people, like waiting for this to reach the right ears. And I posted it. This was like maybe 2 days. I think I posted it the day that it dropped really. And a couple days later, I checked my phone at 8 o'clock, and it had gone from like 800 views. I thought it flopped. I was like, damn, like that's a straight flop right there.
Yeah,
It had gone from 800 views to like 3,000. And I was like, okay, nice. I checked my phone at 11 o'clock before I'm about to go to sleep, and it's at 125,000. And I'm like,
wow.
I got super duper hype. I was like yelling, I was going around, I was calling Jonah. I was like, we were right, like you believed in us. Like I called like our manager. And it was a great time, because it was like, damn, like it's really working right now. I like checked the Spotify for artists, and there was like 200 people listening, and I was like, oh my God, like this is great. Mm-hmm. It finally felt like we had found like the medium of like getting our music out there. And we basically like, we found the formula that sort of like worked for us in terms of like promoting and like doing that stuff. And we were able to replicate it with T-Love, and T-Love did even crazier numbers than the Jaded one. I think the Jaded TikTok ended up with like 900,000 views.
That's huge.
And then I think the T-Love, like all those videos combined, probably like 3 million.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, so we ended up going from like 30,000 followers to now we have like 104,000.
Wow.
And so I mean, really what I'm hoping for is, as the singles come out, like we gain like those like 30,000 like per single, so that by the time we're ready to release the album, we have enough eyes on us that will hopefully like be able to make a dent. Which my favorite part of it really is like, I love long songs. Like I love long songs, and like my whole entire life in like the music industry, like just this past year basically was just getting told like, you need to cut these songs like 3 minutes or less. And T-Love is like 5 minutes and 27 seconds.
Yeah, it's a long one. Like, it's great.
With TikTok, and with like honestly like the advent of being able to just post like a short clip of the song, like it ended up to like just kind of not mattering at all like how long the song is anymore, because as long as people are hooked with that one like 30-second clip, then they're just going to listen to the whole song for that 30-second clip, and I think they're going to end up liking it. And so that was really nice to be like affirmed that you really can do not to talk about Queen again and their inspiration, but
you
like,
can really do a Bohemian Rhapsody type
song.
Yeah,
it's like the label's like, you can never do that. You can never put out Bohemian Rhapsody, and it becomes like the biggest song ever.
That's amazing. Well, Ben, thank you so much, man, for doing this. I love your guys' story.
Thank
love
you
what you're doing. Yeah, I have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, I mean, my advice is like, keep your head down, move forward. You know what you need to do. You just need to go out there, play, write. It's all sort of like, as long as you honestly, if you have a phone, like you have like the whole world. And like anyone is great, like even if you don't think it, like you could be great. I don't know.